Welcome back to the Mountain Morning Show. I am really excited to have Hal Prewitt here, artist, technologist, and all around just awesome guy, not to mention race car driver, which is probably the thing that you and I are going to want to talk about together most at the end of the day. But I'm so super excited to have you here. Welcome.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. And next to us here, we've got a little bit of the technology that you invented, which I want to talk about here in a moment. But I'm kind of wondering where we should start. I want to go back a little bit. Let's talk about you as a young man and coming up in the world of computers and technology. You got to see really the birth of that in really almost every facet. Talk to me about where you were when things started should we say, developing as far as computers are concerned?
In the late 60s, well, I'm 61 years old, so I was coming in as a teenager, certainly in the late 60s and early 70s, graduated high school in 72. So I was there for what we now know the PC industry in the late part of the more mini computer, I guess more mainframe machines. And you know, in life, timing is very important. So I was in the right place at the right time, so I got to help create a lot of our current technology we have today. Tremendous challenges. A lot of it was fun, although some days weren't as fun as others, but it was a really interesting time.
You know, they say that for an innovator, someone who, like you, an inventor, they recognize an issue and then create you know, some kind of a solution to it. Was that how your creative process worked, or is it a little different for you?
Actually, that's exactly pretty much happens. We'll talk about a little one of this land card being here.
Yeah, this is a fascinating device. This is really the first land card. This
is the world's first, this is actually the prototype of the world's first local area network card. People refer to it as LAN today. Most people know what that term is. To connect up small IBM business machines. It was designed in the late 70s. Early part of the 80s, and it turned out to be actually the only LAN card to connect and share programs and data on a local area network for those line of IBM machines in the world.
Let me tell folks at home what this is so they get an idea of how complex this is. So not only is this not a etched card, which you're probably used to seeing and actually now could be replicated in a tiny little chip. Every single connection here has been laid out somewhere else so that you knew where to take each of these wires, pull each of them to one of the points and tie them off. Every single one of them. The idea of keeping this straight and remembering where you are is beyond all comprehension. I've done this. I know how hard it is. I can't even fathom the level of difficulty that we're talking here because there are literally hundreds of connections. And of course, doing all of that without wrecking the chips is by itself miraculous. I'm blown away when I say this. I mean, the only thing I ever made that was even close to this was a little TV jammer. To go to this is just beyond unreal. How did you possibly?
As you asked a few moments ago, there was a problem. In that days, we were standalone machines. The machine's primary storage device was a floppy disk drive, 8-inch floppies, for example. And there was no real easy way. We used to call it sneaker net. It's where you'd run a floppy back and forth between the machines if you needed to share information. So there was the problem. And of course, networks, we were in the very early days of what we have in networks. There were some
there were billboard sites.
There were some large mainframe machines. There were some communications, mostly high performance serial type of communications, token ring and some other stuff. But the Ethernet didn't exist, although the very early days of that, it had basically been designed but hadn't been fully implemented. So it was a problem. You bought an IBM computer, which most people did at the time because PCs didn't exist, Apple didn't exist, none of these companies existed that we know today in the PC market. And I set out to solve a problem. I had many customers that had accounting applications, engineering applications, and they needed to share information. So after about 4 years of hard engineering effort, we developed this board.
It's fascinating. I mean, there's only, what, 6 resistors on here, a couple of capacitors, some LEDs, and then everything else is a chip. It's just, really, I'm absolutely blown away.
Yeah, if I had, because I was solving a problem, but if I had said I want to build a local area network for the world, I could have changed direction and gone a different way, and actually it'd probably been a household name today because that's what. But again, it was just solving a problem, and like I said, I wasn't trying to solve the world's problems. I was trying to solve these IBM problems.
Indeed.
And it was great. But this is how it all began. And you know, the beautiful part is you don't have to go to the Smithsonian or to some other great world. You can come right in downtown Park City and come into my gallery on Main Street and actually see this.
Wow.
Also see the machine that started the PC industry is there on display.
Awesome. And of course I would have ruined it right there. Back in the day. All right, let's talk about another thing that you did, which is just still so much of what we're doing today, so much part of today. Both of these technologies are. But come in with a disk array and hop swappable disks. That, I mean, good grief. When you think about how much memory we use nowadays, we would not be able to do what we're doing without that.
Yep.
Talk to me about where that idea came from.
Well, essentially, explain a little bit what this is. It's really a high-performance disk storage system. So most people are familiar with a hard drive. This has three primary characteristics. First of all, it's high capacity. You can see the multiple drives in it.
Right.
And then second, it is very fast. Because there's multiple drives, we can overlap the I/O. Think of it like having 5 pickup trucks where you can move the information at all at the same time in parallel. So you can move essentially information up to like 5 times faster than you do with a single drive. And the last is reliability and fault tolerance. This box has a really neat things. One is if it breaks, you don't lose your information, as per se, a disk drive goes bad. And then further, you don't need to turn the machine off to service it.
Right.
You can actually hot plug one of these disk drives while it's in use without turning it off, without losing information. That means you can actually reach in, pull it out of the system, get the new one out, stick it back in, and install it back in your machine. And continue right like you had, like nothing had happened. Why it's so important is because this is the way we actually store information worldwide today.
Yeah, on much bigger banks of these with much bigger cards.
Correct.
Yeah,
correct.
Unbelievably larger scale.
Right. And with what Microsoft, Amazon, Google, the cloud,
Facebook,
all of the
YouTube,
all your data is actually stored on a disk array somewhere. As well, small businesses have these. I mean, what you're looking at, by the way, this is the prototype for the world's first 5 1/4 disk array.
Wow.
Put a little more perspective, because some people may not be so technically aware, but they may know something about business. Michael Dell's in the process, from Dell Computers, in the process of buying a company called EMC right now, for about $60 billion. Back in the late 80s, early 90s, I almost did a deal with them. They looked at my technology and said everything I had was more advanced than anything they had.
Wow.
So I ultimately sold my company to Sony in around 92.
We were kind of talking about that when you sold this. You sold early, and that's, I mean, it's a good thing to sell when you've come up with an idea and people know it's going to take off and they're excited, they're interested, they take it and build something from it. But the risk you take is that they take it and it becomes even more valuable in a short period of time. Did you get your share out of the deal? How did that work for you?
In life, all we really need, someone to love, a warm place to stay dry, food to eat, sort of minimum creature comforts, and then everything else really is extra.
Right, it's gravy.
So it's all
frosting.
Gravy, exactly. So I really never cared about the money. I was always trying to be successful. Invent things, solve problems, be creative, whether it was in technology or art or even in many things in social stuff that I ultimately did in the public.
Wow.
And so what I discovered actually at a young age is if you make things successful, you do a good job, everybody wants to work with you, and guess what? They all give you money. So I started out basically with nothing, and next thing I know, I have millions of dollars. So Sony paid me a lot of money. Had I waited a little bit, and we certainly, my technology was essentially a lot of it was used as ultimately for a lot of storage and the backbone storage method, what we now know as the internet. But if I had waited, I'd have sold for billions of dollars. And but I don't care.
Right. You still are the guy who made it. You're the originator. Cool. That's got to be by itself. I mean, that's got to help you sleep at night. You came up with
it's kind of neat, but I'm actually a pretty low-key kind of guy. Most people don't even know that I live in Park City,
right.
or that this stuff is, you can see this on Main Street here.
Right.
And so I never really cared about that much. You know, it was really,
Right.
to me, it wasn't about fame. I mean, there's certainly people can read on the internet about it. I mean, an example is, again, I mentioned these were hot pluggable drives. I invented that. In fact, I trademarked it, and it's trademark protected. It's owned by Sony today, but it, again, in fact, the world kind of refers to today as hot swappable. I think you used it as well, because most people are familiar with it. And the reason is because it's hot plug is what you're actually doing, but it's a trademark term, and it's good forever. So, you know,
and it has your name attached to it. That's
it does,
pretty impressive.
But, you know, I never really played that up. I've never... I've been approached by some writers to do a book and, you know, and cover some of this technology, especially people had interest in what about jobs and so on. Yeah,
you weren't competitive in that world as far as getting your name recognized, but we know you're competitive on the racetrack,
yes.
which we're going to talk about in a minute. I want to take a quick break. We'll come back. We'll talk about racing a little bit for just a moment or two, and we'll also talk about that creativity from here to the gallery. And I think that's a fascinating story as well. Hal Prewitt joins us. We'll be back with more right after these messages. Back on the Mountain Morning Show, we continue our conversation with Hal Prewitt, inventor, race car driver, and artist. And we got to talk about race car driving for a minute. Can we do that?
Absolutely.
You know that you and I both share this passion. We've both been on the track. You much more successful in doing it for years. Talk to me about that, because that has been your, you know, you've had you know, an outlet for your imagination. You've had an outlet for your creativity. You've also had an outlet for your competition feeling, you know, that need to win, and that's been on the track. Talk about that.
I grew up in Daytona Beach. Of course, people have heard of the Daytona 500 and the Daytona racetrack, certainly in the United States. It's used both for NASCAR circle track and as well as a road track. Big race there's the 24 Hours of Daytona. I happen to have driven that, I don't know, 5 times or so, and had some pretty nice finishes. Done about 200 races or so in my career. Last year, Vincent, kind of neat, is I was, it was one of my best years in my entire career. I was finished the #1 American driver and #4 in the world in the International Endurance Championship competition, 57 countries, and I don't know, more than 800 drivers from around the world. It was quite an honor, racing mostly in Europe, the Middle East, sports cars. So you know, it all does tie together. The racing side has always been part of the challenge, you know, is to win, to figure it all out, to take in thousands of pieces of information and figure out what it takes to win.
And doing it quickly on the track.
Well,
figuring out whether your car is understeering, oversteering, braking, gear shifting, all of those things, fuel management, all of it at once. That's what's kind of racing through your head. It's an awful lot like the back of that chip. This is fascinating. In your studio, to bring it back full circle here for a moment, you've got some ridiculous technology, and it's the first. I mean, it really is the thing that makes all of this necessary.
Well, we have a little museum section. You know, people ask about who the artist is. It's in the gallery is mostly my work and that of Peter Fillerup, a well-known Western sculptor, probably the best one Western sculpture alive today. Hundreds, I mean, probably $50 million of stuff is on display in this area, and in, of course, in museums. And so anyway, this is an idea of my wife's 92-year-old mother. She said, you have to take the stuff out of the closet and bring it in to show people. And so we put up and show some of the trophies and some of the stuff, and this computer technology. On display is the machine that started the PC industry. And why? Well, it was on the cover, the kit part. It was actually a kit. And it actually has my components in it as well that I built. It was about my 3rd machine I actually built back in the early 70s. And why it's the machine that started the PC industry is, well, there's a guy you've heard about, a guy by the name of Bill Gates. He was hired to write the first basic interpreter for that kit machine, dropped out of college and started a company most people have heard about called Microsoft. And it took him a few years to do it, so I predated him. And of course, we worked a little bit together over a little bit of the time. And then 2 other other guys that most people have heard about. One guy named Steve Jobs, another one named Wozniak. And there's a third guy. They saw the technology in that 1975 time frame, thought it was going to turn into something, and ultimately started a company called Apple.
Wow.
It took them again another few years, but you can see this machine on display, the one I built.
Right there in your gallery.
Right there in the gallery.
Wow.
There's a working version in the Smithsonian, and there's some other little kit parts around, but again, this is the one that's got my guts and the kit stuff in it. You can see that, of course, all this other stuff. Right here on Main Street in Park City.
It's amazing.
Yep.
Well, I'm going to leave to Chelsea the opportunity to talk to you about your art and that side of things, another creative outlet for our friend Hal Prewitt. This is awesome, spending some time with you. Thank you so much for sharing the technology.
Hello there and welcome back to the Mountain Morning Show, continuing our conversation with tech pioneer, artist, and race car driver Hal Prewitt. Hal, I'm so excited to get to share in on this discussion with you. I have been to your gallery. I was on my way to a Sundance film and we just happened upon it, and the woman kind of working the gallery was like, oh yeah, this is new. I was like, this is amazing. The items, the creations you have in there are quite phenomenal. As you know, we were just chatting with Joe, of course, about kind of what that creative process is like. But I want to know what first introduced you to photography, Hal?
I started actually as a teenager back in the film times. I used to actually paint and draw. Today I paint with a camera essentially, but I'd use oils and I drew. I did all sorts of things in that area, and I actually sold my first work in when I was about 15 years old.
No kidding.
I kind of wish I had it back, but it's been long
Whoever
gone
that
now.
is.
Yeah, it's quite a collector piece
That's
today.
amazing.
And then I had to sort of move away from it as building the business, and then of course our technology we talked about. Of course, ultimately that made me my wealth that I have today. But I was always on the edges of the art world a little bit, and then always doing it. And ultimately, I came to the conclusion about 5 years ago, I need to do something with this or stop taking pictures because I just got too much. Yeah. So on display in the gallery is just most of the time less than 1% of the images I have from all over the world.
Wow, and this just opened the end of last year.
In the very end of the year, and so most of the time, most people have seen it. It was started in January, I would say, or very little around Christmas, and then of course up to the recent time.
One thing that struck me as I walked into this gallery was the vibrancy of these images. I felt like I was looking through a window and seeing these with how you see them as a photographer. You have been so blessed to be able to travel all around the world and capture such spectacular images, but this one is from our own backyard. This is quite fantastic. Tell me about it.
This is one of my series. Well, let me back up a second. I try to take a different approach than everyone else. I mean, I do this as a love. This is a passion. It's great if I could certainly make the money at it, and of course I have to pay the light bill and so on. But so my message really is art is for everyone. So I've tried really hard to make things affordable. I think I'm the only guy probably within this area of the state. I came up with a whole series, more than 150 images. They're 9 by 9 in size, and they're only $100. If you buy 5, you get the 6th one for free. So, you know, sometimes we run specials, but the point is they're beautiful images under $100 a piece. They're not printed on paper or canvas, the inexpensive stuff. These are printed on metal, and they really collect light. And this is what you were seeing in the gallery. They just absolutely, people think they're backlit.
It was almost like overload in a good way. I felt like I was in a different sphere almost. I was like, this is...
Yeah, I really recommend people come in and see it firsthand, see it in the viewing room light. This is a shot of Park City Mountain, of course, here in ski season. This is, of course, you can see across the city of the village, right? And there's actually 3 of these. There's one that shows this area of the mountain, and then towards Deer Valley, see Main Street. And just one example that I brought in has a really neat hanging system.
And as a side note, this is pretty cool. This guy's still inventing. Tell me about this, and how did you come up with it?
One of the problems that once I came up with it, I'd take a look at the different hanging methods that were on the market, and essentially they weren't very good. Anyone that's hung a picture before knows it can be really a pain. I have to get a ruler to level, and you can't get it straight, and you end up with multiple holes in the wall. So I essentially invented a hanging system. It's really kind of neat. You don't even need a level. So this is one of the other half. The other half is on it, and it's really neat. So you essentially just put a screw in the wall, and you can kind of see it here.
Yeah.
Put a screw in the wall, and then you can actually twist this easy or slide it up and down so you can get perfect alignment. The 9x9s were designed to go in essentially a collage, and this uses what we call a French cleat, so it just hangs exactly like that. So you can see it. You mount that little block on the wall, and then you can just hang the image, and you can slide it to the left or right and get perfect alignment, or slide it up and down. Very easy, so you don't need a ruler, just a screw in this thing, and then you can build a really nice, beautiful wall system for a kitchen, bathroom, or whatnot.
Look at that, he's even taking care of the hanging process to make it
exactly.
easy for you.
I filed a patent on it, another little invention.
Right.
I'll probably sell it to other people.
That's
so
wonderful.
It's just another one of the things I came up with to solve a problem.
Well, Hal, let's look at some of the other images that we have in your gallery. We have some beautiful digital ones, but as Hal said, you really need to be in studio to check these out. This is kind of a larger version, a little bit of what we're seeing here, but Park City.
Yeah, that's one of the posters we made. Actually, you can sort of see it similar to this image. One example, I actually have it as much as 20 feet across, 8 feet tall and 20 foot across.
That's huge.
So it's beautiful. There's another cut of it that actually shows more of Deer Valley to the left. So it's just one sample. This one actually we're looking at on the screen is a poster that is, I literally sold out. I made a few hundred samples, and within a couple weeks they were gone, and I'm in the process of reprinting those, and so those are available again, very affordable. Right. Lots of tourists love these, take them home. It's a great souvenir.
Sure. Let's check out some more. What's this?
This is a spirit bear. These guys are extremely rare. They're genetically a black bear, but they carry a recessive gene. They're not albinos. They're only believed to be a few hundred, certainly less than 1,000 in the world. They only live in a small section of Canada, about halfway to Alaska, in the Indians First Nations area called the Great Bear Rainforest. There's no people around, no roads, nothing. You have to, I came in by boat, took me 2 days to get there, and I lived with the Indians and took this picture. So it is a large bird. You can see it holding a salmon in its mouth. It's just one of maybe 100 images I have of spirit bears, covered by National Geographic. I'm probably the only photographer in Utah that has pictures of them. You won't find any other anywhere close by that I've seen.
Okay, Hal, before we go on though, how did you set this up? How did you manage to get that?
I went into the woods, and it was a tough trip. I essentially, I had an Indian guide and some other helpers. Some of them actually kind of worked as kind of like border guards. The Indians call these spirit bears or Komodo bears. And so that's why they have that white characteristic. By the way, sometimes from generation to generation they can be black or white. And so imagine, talk about interesting integration. What happens if we had that characteristic is some of our offspring were white or some of them were black. And this is what happens with these Komodo. They're very interesting. So anyway, you can see these in the gallery.
Sure, let's check out some more. What do we got?
This is Mesa Arch, probably been photographed 10 million times in southern Utah. Very, very popular image. I normally don't shoot or do an image or a piece of art that somebody else has something similar to. And in this case, I made an exception. It's a really popular piece. We're looking at also one that was made available on a poster. But I have these, again, huge and large size. Again, I'm kind of different in the fact I make images can be 25 feet across. So they're quite stunning. So you can imagine what this looks like hanging about anywhere. And I cut it into multiple different sizes.
Great. Let's check out some more. Okay, what's this?
This is the Timpanogos here, just on the other side of Park City, here over near Heber, on the Deer Reservoir. And I shot it early morning, and you can see the moon setting. So we're looking to the west. Kind of a neat image. Again, a nice reflection.
Yeah, that reflection.
Yep.
What time of year was this?
This was shot in, I think it was early February of this year. Just one of many, many local images I have.
I mean, don't you just feel like that's just a window that you could just like go right through?
It is.
Because it's so, like the colors are so vibrant.
People think they're backlit.
Oh, wow.
The image up on display is a proof of one. I haven't yet printed this. I brought this because it's kind of neat. I actually have in production right now 3 different angles of Park City and our surrounding area. Most people don't know the Milky Way galaxy is visible above our town. And I shot this about 2 months ago. You may recognize Deer Valley is right to the right there on the right corner. It's sort of cut off a little bit on the side of the monitor. The left is the reservoir, the Jordanelle Reservoir, but you can see the beautiful picture and you can see the image of the Milky Way galaxy. This is all real, by the way. This is not Photoshop.
It's like unearthly almost because of how spectacular that is. But tell me about the photographic process, the exposure. Joe knows a little bit more about photography than I do, but I want to know how you did that.
It was not easy. I shot that around 3:30 in the morning using the light, of course, of what's in the atmosphere. And it's a single image. I didn't composite this together. No, I didn't take two different images and make it. I have, as I mentioned, I shot also the angle of Deer Valley, so you can see Deer Valley proper with the Milky Way over it because it's a slightly different angle. And then I actually have a beautiful picture of downtown Park City looking to the south, up toward the mountain, and you can see the Milky Way right over it. And of course, you can see a little light coming over the sky from over in Provo at about 30 miles away.
That is so incredible. What a great angle, and that's what I love about what you're doing is you're kind of showing things, looking at them with a new aspect, and we're like, oh, I've never seen it like that.
Exactly.
Just like that one. But this one, what is this?
This is Deer Valley, shot a couple of months ago, right at the very end of ski season. I think the slopes had just closed. We're looking to the east. The moon rises east just like the sun.
Wow.
And these are really hard to get. You have to be in the perfect place at the perfect time and sort of get it. Of course, you can see the ski lift and with the moon where it just sits perfect. I think there's even another really kind of cool, and I call it my ET image coming up. But again, another example. This is fairly crisp and clear, and so again, it's available in multiple sizes from very small, 5x8s, all the way to some very large images.
Sure. Okay, let's go on to what's next. Okay, when I was in your gallery, I could not leave this. This was don't you have like several similar city ones in there? It wasn't just this one, or am I?
This is one of six in the panel.
Okay, I could not leave it. I was like, this is phenomenal. Where is this, and how'd you get it?
In the art world, the two areas of value come from. One is, first of all, is the uniqueness. The more unique an image is, typically the more valuable it is. And in this particular image, by the way, the second part of that is who made it, the artist. So that drives the value.
Sure.
So as a person is looking to collect art or buy something, these things have more value than looking at a bunch of aspen trees, that are really common. And it's not that aspen tree can't be beautiful. Going in on this image, why is this so unique and great? This happens to be Miami South Beach, looking kind of northeast. Very famous location, Joe Stone Crab down on the edge, of course the beach, oceanfront, most people are familiar, Lincoln Road. This is a violent thunderstorm. From a meteorological point of view, this is a really rare event. And if you actually look carefully, I'm not sure we can see it on the TV monitor, but you can certainly see it in the gallery. What you were drawn to is above that cloud, you can see stars. So it tells us that it's less than 5,000 feet. I'm also a pilot as well.
Oh,
so,
we should add that to your list.
It's just another thing. So I kind of knew when I saw this how important it was from a meteorological event. And you'll notice there's a lightning coming out the side.
Yes.
To see lightning dissipate into the atmosphere from an electrical point of view is a very rare event. To see it dissipate like this is almost never captured. So again, a very, very unique image. And you can see a little bit closer up to it. You see actually see the plasma coming off of it. Tremendously beautiful image. It is one of the most popular images I have in the gallery. I'm only making 50 of each of these, so they're quite collectible, and I've been quite a collectible piece, valuable seller. People come in from all over the world and just say, send that to me.
That's what they want.
Exactly, and I have 6 of them. I mean, most photographers dream a lifetime to get one of these things.
Yes.
I shot a whole bunch of them, and I printed 6.
Wow. So as an artist, and as we're looking through more of these, share with me what that process is like when you see, clearly that looked like a great image, but not just anyone could have captured that image above Miami with, the clouds, and you kind of have to have an eye for that, and that comes, as we were mentioning before, some of that is natural, some of it is learned and practiced, but this is something that has always existed, this desire to create. We've seen that in technology, even with your competitive spirit in racing, but I think shown very well, obviously, in photography. What is that process like for you?
Well, actually, I prefer, I've got into the photographic side. I'll back up a second. It's a lot easier to paint or draw. I can do that from anywhere because it comes out of your mind.
Right.
It's a relatively easy process. You can do it with $20 of materials. but it's not real. It's something that each of us have to imagine. Certain people's work looks better than others and looks more real. Photography is by far more complicated and more of a challenge. I think that was kind of why I was really attracted to it, kind of like racing. It's the challenge of capturing an image, figuring out where to go, what do you have to do to get it. Pushing the button's actually the easy part. I mean, anyone can learn the mechanical aspects and do that. That's the easy stuff. The hard part is to envision what will be a beautiful image, and then of course being in a position to capture it, because it has to be real. And I don't want to Photoshop it. I don't want to make it up. I mean, there's nothing wrong with it. And so the challenge of thinking these things through, the image that was just up, we refer to as a ET image. You may have seen the moon with the picture. With the ski chair in it. It took me 3 years to get that figured out as to how to be in the right place at the right time to be able to get it. And I can tell you, you were off 20 feet when that moon came up. You missed the image. You know, the moon only comes up once a month at a full moon, so 12 only, and then you got weather issues and so on. So it took years and years and years to do this. I could have sat and painted it in, probably an hour.
Right.
But I wanted it to cater. You can see it's kind of really popular. I'm just now taking it into production, so people can come in the gallery and see it.
Wonderful.
It's kind of cool.
That is amazing, and we can check out your gallery up Historic Park City Main Street. What's your address? Kind of where are you
570,
situated?
right in the middle, directly across from the Klein Jumper.
All right.
A couple restaurants right between us and so on. So and we're open from typically around 10 or 11 o'clock in the morning, depending on the time of the season, to as much as 10 or 11 o'clock at night. If it's the slow time, we might close it a little bit, maybe 8 o'clock.
Right, and as Joe mentioned before with you have kind of like a mini museum there,
Yes.
if you will. And I remember when I was there, I was like, who is the artist? And they're like, oh, check out his stuff back there. I was like, he does all of this too? Like, I was kind of floored by that. I'm glad you found the time to do all these things and to share these things with us this morning. Really, I appreciate you being here this morning with us, Hal, and I look forward to stopping by again.
Thank you.
It's been a pleasure to have you here. Thank you.
Thank you very
much. Hal Prewitt, tech pioneer, race car driver, now pilot, I found out as well, and artist. We'll be right back after this commercial break.